So, should we be concerned with Jayson Tatum's performance so far in the NBA Finals? Obviously, he hasn't been shooting the ball well, really just during this whole playoff run. There were talks about Jaylen Brown being the better basketball player, that Jayson Tatum is never going to get over this hump, and that Dallas might come back because if Tatum doesn't show up, well, eventually Luka and Kyrie are going to take control and, turn this thing around. But here's my thoughts on Jayson Tatum so far. Am I concerned? No, I'm not. The biggest thing that doesn't get talked about Jayson Tatum during this playoff run is he's playing within the flow of the offense. You see, back in the 2022 finals run, everybody was getting on his case about having 100 turnovers during that playoff run. Right now, he's at 43 turnovers, and they're 14-2 during that playoff run. They've won 9 straight playoff games. So for me, when I'm looking at Tatum, there was a moment at the end of the game in game 2 where he got blocked on a dunk, and then Jaylen Brown and Derek White made that incredible block. Well, really Derek White, but Brown was there on the play. And in the next play, Tatum doesn't get involved in the play. He lets Jaylen Brown get an opportunity to drive the ball and make a layup. Now, Tatum in that moment could have said, you know what? I need the ball right now to make up what I did on the last play, but he didn't. And I think that speaks volumes of his maturity as a basketball player. One thing that we forget when it comes to superstars is that every superstar goes through a process. If we look at the stats, I'm going to pull one up for you. For the NBA Finals, obviously Jayson Tatum's at 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 8.5 assists. Now, he is making the right plays out there. If you're watching him drive to the paint, Dallas has 2 or 3 guys paying attention to what he's doing. They're setting doubles. There's a lot of attention on Tatum right now. If you go look at LeBron James, when he played with the Miami Heat, his first year, or just his first 2 seasons, first 2 times in the NBA Finals. Here are the stats. In 10 games, 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 6.8 assists. So he played with that horrible Cavs team, and then he played with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, which was a super team, and he struggled. So I think we need to slow down on Tatum's potential because right now he's 26. I don't want to make excuses because I think he does need to have a really good game 3, and he's got the opportunity in front of him to really close the door on this series. And I think he could potentially show up. I really feel like Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum are going to go off in game 3. With that being said, you look at Steph Curry back in that 2016 finals run where they played the Cavaliers, and you look at his performance. Now, he was at 25, 5 rebounds and 5 assists, but go to the NBA Finals. Do some searching here for you guys. And he was at 22.6 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 3.7 assists. And in the game 7, he shot 28% from 3. Draymond Green was the leading scorer in that game. So even Steph Curry, to his standards, has had moments where he shrunk. But what happened? He responded. Kevin Durant came to town. He started cooking. And then when he left, he had a phenomenal finals against the Celtics. So as he matured, he got better. We need to see how Tatum is going to respond to this after the season because I think there's a huge burden on him to win a title. So I wonder, after the season, if Boston does close this out, then Tatum is probably going to have a weight lifted off him if they win the championship. Because now the pressure of, okay, you got so close, you were at multiple Eastern Conference Finals, you were at an NBA Finals, now you're at a second one. To get over that hump, now he can breathe a little bit more. When you look at Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, the reason why it seems like Jaylen Brown is a better player because he's played in the NBA a little bit longer. Experience matters. You have to realize that. Jaylen Brown is 27 years old. He's in his prime right now. Your prime years start at the age of 27. So we'll see how much better Jayson Tatum gets next year. I think the one thing that will help Jayson Tatum get better is to have a consistent mid-range game. Now, Jaylen Brown has this in his arsenal. He can pull up from the mid-range and get a shot over somebody. That is something Tatum should do, is have better efficiency with finishing at the rim. And I think that's something he will work on during this offseason. But all this hate towards Jayson Tatum is ridiculous to me. Because if you're a GM and you have the opportunity to sign Jayson Tatum and you don't sign him, I want you fired. I don't want you near my team. And the reason why I say that, because he's in multiple conference finals. You can say, oh, I saw a tweet say, oh, he's the most privileged superstar ever. Really? It's his fault because he has a good GM. The same GM who got promoted and people were doubting Brad Stevens. He never had experience in that role. He got better at it. So if you're complaining because Tatum has these role players and stars, tell your GM to get better at his job. You see, it's a complete team effort. You need to have a good GM. You need to have a good owner. You got to have a franchise who cares about winning. And if you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you. Because, like I said, Brad Stevens never had any experience with it as a GM. He comes in and turns this thing around, and all of a sudden they're contenders. And, oh, Tatum gets all this help. Well, he can't control what the front office does. You need a star. You need your Robin. You need good role players to win titles. That's how it works. That is the formula. And if you're complaining and whining, well, hey, I don't know what to tell you. If this was happening to Luka Doncic where you had all this help, are we going to get that same energy? If the Lakers had Jayson Tatum and he got all this help, are we hearing that same narrative? I don't know. Probably not from Lakers fans because they want to win titles. So I just think the hate is because he plays for Boston. I think if he was with the Knicks or another franchise, I don't think he's going to get this amount of attention. I just think we need to look at Tatum and go, okay, he's still developing as a player. And, we'll see where he will be next year and what his potential will be. It's still uncertain. Do I think he's a top 10 player? Yeah, I see arguments about, oh, he's borderline top 10 or he's not even top 10. Like, you don't know basketball at all. Just put your basketball card somewhere and say, I'm not going to pick it up right now because you don't know anything about the NBA if you think he's not top 10. He's been all NBA. It's just the playoffs are a different animal. And sometimes there are moments where players aren't playing as well. But you look at the turnovers, he's gone from 100 to 43. He's a plus 178. LeBron James was a plus 28 when he first played with the Heat. So we can look at these numbers and say, I'm not suggesting Tatum's better than LeBron James. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying everybody goes through a different process. And we have to just let Tatum continue to develop. Do you want a guy getting you to the NBA Finals where you're 2 games away from potentially winning it? Or do you want to just barely make the playoffs or miss the playoffs year in and year out or get knocked out in the second round like Joel Embiid? What do you want? Because you can have the Luka Doncic, you can have all this great scoring and this flair for the game, but if you're not winning, none of that matters. When Jayson Tatum was asked about his primary role being a playmaker, this is what he said in response. We're so close to what we're trying to accomplish. Why would I let my ego or need to score a lot of points get in the way of that? Don't you want a guy like that on your team? Don't you want a superstar like that on your team who can lead the way? If you don't, man, I don't want you as my GM. I really don't, because you're going to ruin the franchise. For real. We need to remember that every player goes through a different process. Yes, he deserves to be criticized when he shrinks. I do agree. But to see this team at 14-2, I don't care how easy it was in the East. That's not their fault. Again, tell your GMs to put a better roster together. Injuries are a part of sport, especially when you've been in the conference finals so many times. You're bound to go through a playoff run where you have a lot of injury luck. It's the law of averages. So if they end up finishing the job, let's say they sweep Dallas 80-20 on the year, that's dominance. We're going to look at this team and go, okay, that team just ran through the league from October to June. You sweep the Mavericks, the same team who I heard was going to give them a lot of problems because Boston didn't play anybody in the East. You go and sweep them? Come on, what are we doing here? So I love what he said there. I think it shows his unselfishness and his maturity as a player. I think his impact with playmaking, rebounding, and guarding Daniel Gafford out there doesn't get talked about enough. And his ability to sacrifice for the betterment of the team so they can win a championship needs to be talked about more. Instead of pushing these, oh, he's not dropping 35 points. Oh, like Kendrick Perkins says, oh, he should have dropped 50 against the Pacers in game 1. Like, what are we doing here? I love what Gilbert Arenas had to say in his podcast where he talked about not every series is your series. And that's a reality. There are going to be playoff matchups where it's just not going to be your series, and you got to live with that, and you got to learn to adjust. We saw Curry, struggle against the Cavaliers in 2016. That happened, but he bounced back. We saw LeBron James shrink in the NBA Finals against the Dallas Mavericks. Well, what happened after that? He goes on and wins 4 titles, and he made 8 straight NBA Finals. So before we become so critical of somebody, let's think about what we're saying. Yes, we can still hold them accountable, But let's see how they develop. So let's see what Tatum's going to look like at 27, 20. Now, if he's still the same guy during these deep playoff runs, then I can't defend him. But if he's impacting winning, if his percentages get better, and let's say he goes out tomorrow and drops a 40 ball and they just win in a clutch situation, what are you going to say then? You're going to say nothing. And you're going to realize, okay, this team's about to get banner 18 and have the most championships in the NBA once again. That's all there really is to it. Like, it's about winning. And, we can talk about stats all day long. And, is Tatum in that top 5 conversation yet? Maybe not. Could you make an argument after he wins a championship and a finals MVP? You're not going to have a lot of counters to that because the man will be in 2 NBA finals, the finals MVP, multiple Eastern Conference finals appearances. Can't argue that. You can try. But if my guy's winning, your guy's not, that's what it's all about anyways. It's about getting that title. Now, as we heard the news today, Kristaps Porzingis has a torn medial retina corneum. I probably said that wrong, but there are reports that he could be out for the rest of the series. But tomorrow is a perfect time for Jayson Tatum to send a loud message without Kristaps in the lineup that, hey, I'm top 10 and you can't say anything about it. Here's what I would love to see tomorrow. Boston in a tight game after being down early, whether it's like 10 to 15 points or 20 points. Let's say they're down big. Just like when the Celtics were down in game 4 against the Lakers and they stormed back to win that one. I would love to see that tomorrow where Tatum and Brown lead the charge and send a loud message. And Tatum is clutch and, they let the league know, hey, we're the best team in basketball. And there's nothing you can do about it or say about it. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited for game 3. My team is 2 wins away. I'm still nervous because this is the moment where they're either going to be champions or they're going to roll over and choke. So we'll see how they respond. They've done an amazing job up to this point, and they deserve a ton of credit for that. And it's going to be a great game, and I'm looking forward to it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Thanks for sticking to the end. Make sure you guys leave your thoughts in the comments section. I'd love to hear what you guys got to say about Jayson Tatum and where you see him down the road. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.